Welcome to Lessons in Dyslexic Thinking, conversations with the world's most inspiring dyslexics, where we find out what dyslexic thinking is and how each of us can employ it to change the world. Today I'm joined by former Premier League and England footballer and successful football pundit Joleon Lescott. Joleon, you've won every major honour in England football, including 2 Premier League titles, the FA Cup and the League Cup with Manchester City. You've also played for England 26 times, and last year you coached the England under-21s to win in the Euros. You've said top players see faster. They know what needs to happen or what's going to happen. They're just able to do it faster. That is dyslexic thinking. Welcome, Joleon. It's great to have you with us today.
Pleasure to be here.
So if we can kick off with a big question, which is tell us more about your dyslexic thinking and how you think it's helped you to succeed.
It's not dyslexic thinking to me. As a child, it was just thinking. It was the way I thought. Obviously, I always looked to the more efficient way to get something done through my school journey. But then in terms of my thinking patterns for my playing career, it just allowed me to process things. I don't know if it was quicker, but just smoother. I just felt I was able to make the decisions based on all the factors and all the variable things that could happen. Not always the right decision, but a logical approach to the decision I was making.
There are 5 reasons that we think dyslexics are unstoppable in sport. It's amazing spatial awareness, intuition, feeling the game, being brilliant visualizers so they can actually, memorize set pieces, incredible perseverance, and also exceptional focus. So to be good at football, you have to have all of those things, don't you?
Yeah, I would say you have to have them all at various times in various scenarios. The ones that stand out and stood out would be the memory. That one for me is a big thing. I pride myself on having a good memory, and just non-sporting situations as well, whether it's card games and license plates and colours of stuff. So memory was always a big thing, and always a game I prided myself on, and an opportunity to get one up on older brother, mum, dad and stuff. So the memory definitely was a big thing.
And do you have that ability to sort of remember how games are likely to play out in sport? I find it fascinating. So many sports people that we've interviewed talk about that.
Yeah, I'd probably not say play out, because then I'll be predicting the future. I probably would never have got anything wrong, which I did. But in regards to memorising, like if you used to say to me, oh, there was a certain game, I'd be confident I could memorise an element of it, a detail of it that probably would go unnoticed to most people. And again, yeah, it's something I prided myself on, but something I used to use to help me obviously progress and stay focused and not get too emotionally, whether it's highs or lows, and just stay relatively balanced.
Football at the sort of level that you played is full of highs and lows. How do you think your dyslexic thinking has helped you build resilience, and how have you coped with those highs and lows?
Again, just trying to remain balanced throughout, and I don't know if this is a dyslexic thinking method, but I'm quite a negative thinker in terms of I always believe there's something worse and tend to go to, well, it could be worse, or if there was a situation, again, and say, oh, well, it's been worse than this, so I use that in a positive way, but I always kind of think of the worst case scenario. Maybe that was due to my position that I played as well. What was the worst outcome? It was tend to conceding goals or making mistakes. So yeah, again, I don't know if that is correlated with dyslexia, but it was the way I thought, the way I kind of approached most things was what's the worst thing that could happen, and then work backwards from there.
I wonder whether that's a positive outlook rather than a negative outlook. It can only get better, I guess.
Yeah, again, I tend to think that most people's traits are the same. It's the circumstances or the scenario that determine how relevant and how beneficial they are. So again, me thinking that way is great in certain scenarios, but then in others, it's kind of not so great. So again, how I'd relate that to this conversation would be, as my career progressed and many coaches and methods became, front foot defending and we need to be more aggressive, it was like, well, I've always kind of had the thought of process of being a bit more secure. So the transition into totally changing the way I defended as an individual and coach teams how to defend was probably a little bit harder for me than other players, because I was always thinking, well, the job is to stop this, not to necessarily win it there.
When did your career in football start? Tell me a little bit about that.
My career started when I left school, basically. I was 15. I'm an August birthday, so left school at 15, joined Wolverhampton Wanderers academy then, and then just the trajectory was pretty quick from 15, 16 to 19. I'd progressed pretty fast. I was physically developed, but in regards to how I was able to compete with adults, probably started a lot earlier than that. My brother's 4 years older than me, so having to play with him and that friendship group helped me develop and understand that things I was good at maybe not be as dominant as I got older. So understanding different ways and work out different ways to be effective definitely helped when I was a lot younger, playing with older kids.
Have you always loved football?
Yeah, I think more so now. I think everyone does, but there wasn't as many other alternatives, distractions, which they're known as now. It was all about football when I was growing up, and my brother played football, so I don't know any kid that doesn't want to be like Big Brother. And I was forced at times to be in goal. So yeah, again, but I always had a passion to play and get muddy and put boots on and kits on and stuff. So
masses and masses of practice.
Yeah, at various things. It wasn't a case of I was just stuck to the position I played and had a career at. It was like, initially I was a goalkeeper, and that was down to my brother being a striker and me having to go in goal. And then obviously I got older and wanted to play up front, and I think every child wants to be a striker or forward, and I did that and then realised pretty quickly I wasn't going to have a career at them positions, and it just filtered back, and recognised I could have a career at a certain position, but I was reluctant to accept it. I chose not to play there for a while, chose not to take it as serious in terms of playing for a professional team. I stepped away from that element of it. I think in terms of academy, I just said I'd rather just play for fun, where I can play where I want and run around and just enjoy the game. And then I realised if I'm again going to have a career, it needs to be more serious, and I need to dedicate my talent to one specific position.
And I've read that you and your brother, you're obviously very close, you've started businesses together, fashion labels and things. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, we started them. They didn't go too well. It was a passion of mine. It was the timing of he was finishing his career. He finished at 32, and then we looked at an opportunity to go into it naively again, and naively from my experience, but also naively we trusted someone I thought I could trust, and people that had been in the industry, and it helped me realise people's motivations are very different, and if you're not correlated in the way you think and what drives you, or what you want to drive the business you're doing together, it's not gonna have any longevity. And I found out pretty quickly that people aren't in it for the best interest of the company.
Yeah, no, sometimes that really is the case, isn't it?
Yeah.
You've obviously made a very successful career as a pundit. Again, communication is a dyslexic thinking skill, and it's fascinating to see how many people go from sport into communications. Do you think your dyslexia helps you with that?
I still struggle with reading, but having to experience that a few times was pretty nerve-wracking. But in regards to preparing, again, I went into it trying to be as professional as possible and thinking this is the way it's done by everyone else, and then quickly realised that isn't the best way for me. So over preparing at the start made me more nervous, and I wanted to practice my answers before the questions had come, and then all of a sudden if one word would change, it threw me, and then I would find myself mumbling, dragging on answers, and over elaborating on certain things. So I realised I'm probably used the skills I've developed over the course of my childhood in terms of thinking pretty sharpish on my feet. So don't think too much, don't ask for too much information before you go on air and say, well, what's the topic more so than what's the question? Because again, if the question or the word of the question changes and I've prepared for that, I was struggling, and now it's kind of a lot more relaxed. And obviously it helps the more you do things and the more repetition, but yeah, that's the way I approach it.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've interviewed a lot of TV presenters, and it is about understanding the big picture or knowing what are you needing to talk about, and then actually being able to just interact and talk about it rather than over planning. And yes, teleprompters, I think, are a nightmare for an awful lot of dyslexic people. And do you enjoy doing that side of things, the pundit side of things?
Yeah, definitely. I enjoy talking about football. It's something I believe I have a little bit of knowledge about. And again, due to the way I think I can add a little bit of value in a different way to a viewer. Obviously, it's sometimes difficult when you're trying to be detailed and you've got 20 seconds to describe a scenario. And a lot of the time, or most of the time it takes to describe and detail something is way longer than you've processed it as a player. So if there's a defending aspect of a goal I'm trying to critique, I know the person has made that decision in half a second, and he's processed all these things in order to make that decision, and that's the time it takes to describe it. I'm saying all these things and I'm giving you the insight, but he's had to think of them and make that decision based on all them things that I've just described in half a second. So that's the process of being a footballer, not just a defender.
Oh, it's fascinating. And I'm really interested to hear about the coaching that you did for the under-21 team. I mean, it was amazing that you took them to their prestigious win. Tell me a little bit about coaching, because there's a lot of mindset, as obviously a lot of skills, but the mindset of succeeding and dealing with failure. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, so I was part of the coaching staff. It wasn't solely down to me. No. It was more down to the players. But yeah, I was working with the head coach, Lee Carsley, who I'd played with, and he knew what I was about. And as a person, more so than a coach or a player, it was kind of get me on board to try and influence the younger generation, and they were so receptive to the messages we were delivering to them. And my role wasn't necessarily just on the grass and saying this is the tactic. It was quite more of individual, so I would see what the coach wanted to do and then try and find a way for the individual to implement that in the best way based on his attributes. So again, it was a kind of a more of a detailed level of coaching, because I don't watch the game the way he watches the game. I don't tend to watch the game as a team thing. I tend to watch it more as individuals. So I tend to recognise little traits that, he's not capable of doing that in this scenario. So maybe don't ask him to do it or don't expect him to do it. So it was more from that side of things. That's where I was coming in. But it was a great combination of me and Tim, the goalkeeping coach, and Ashley Cole, who's vastly experienced as well. But it's all down to the players. We can say whatever we want. If the players don't implement it or believe and try to implement it, then there's no success. It
must be very rewarding doing something like that.
Oh, definitely. More than I thought it would be. Again, I went there with aspirations to win. We all did, but the level of success that we had wasn't kind of spoken about. We didn't go there expecting to win every game without conceding. It's nice. It's just disappointing that it wasn't documented for them players, because that's something this country's never done in terms of the way they won it. I think the last time they won it was like 40 years ago. And a lot of them players now this season have gone on to have exceptional seasons. And it's surprising to a lot of people, but if they would have seen the tournament, it wouldn't be that surprising. The trajectory would have been recognised way before and the potential would have been seen. So that's probably the only frustrating part, is that they didn't get the full credit they all deserve.
And you talk then about believing that they can win. How important is it to create that sort of sense of belief? And how did you do that? Because if it's 40 years since they've won, that must have been a real sort of tall order to instill that belief in them.
Yeah, again, it was down to lead that part because I've played the game and worked in the industry for so long. I can honestly say that I've never seen a group of players be fascinated and take in what a coach says to the level they do with him. The kind of relationship he has with everyone, collectively and individually, is different to what I've experienced as a player and as a coach and as a retired footballer. But I think the belief comes from within. This generation, I believe, is a lot more confident than previous, self-belief. But also, again, for me, confidence and belief comes from knowing you've done the work. If I know I've done everything in my power to be the best I could be, then it's going to give me a certain level of belief. And the players had that, and professionalism went up, and they executed. And again, as the momentum built, they didn't get nervous. It inspired them and motivated them to do more, and they did it all. And as I said, it was pretty special.
Yeah, it's passion and hard work and practice. It's really, really important, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. Again, it's a combination of everything. There's never one factor to be that successful, but they were aware of what needed to be done in terms of recovery and preparation and everything, every element of it, whether it was sleeping at the right times and relaxing at the right times, because there's so many elements that are important, and they got it all right. And said that it was a good group because not everyone was playing as much as they want, but in a tournament you kind of understand that teams are going to change, so the starting team isn't going to be a team that started the final, and that was the case. And we played players in positions that suited our style, not necessarily played in them for their clubs, and all of a sudden they've gone to their clubs and now they're playing in the positions that Lee selected them in. So yeah, it was a massive achievement for them.
It's incredible. So take me back to your school days. When did you discover that you were dyslexic?
I don't think I did. I just think I was one of the kids that wasn't as bright as everyone else. I was with the special teacher, Mrs. Gale, her name was. So I used to have to go and sit with her twice a week to do reading and spelling, which is what I struggled with massively. And it was a little cupboard room and probably only could fit 4 people in. And there was only ever 2 of us in there, me and her. And I realised I wasn't able to process the English lessons mainly as fast as everyone else. Maths I was okay at. That was more comfortable for me, and obviously PE, but in regards to the English and reading and spelling, it was always something I struggled at. So it wasn't till probably that I finished school that I realised, they're the traits that I have, and that's the way I see the words when the letters are not in the right place and they mean different things to me than they're actually saying on the paper. So yeah, it wasn't diagnosed whilst I was at school, it was after.
And how did it make you feel when you were at school and you were struggling?
It's difficult, obviously. There's kids are kids and you get teased at certain aspects and times. But I always had football, so that was kind of my out. So whenever everyone thought they could pick on me for various things, we're going to go to playtime in a minute and I'm going to be the guy kind of thing. So I kind of didn't use that, but I was aware of that, and it kind of helped have a balance to not be a target for the things I couldn't do, because I could do some things that other people couldn't. So again, it was nice for me to have that out, but I was aware that isn't the case. That isn't the case for everyone. It's just finding ways to learn. And it's funny now, I've finished school and didn't end up with no GCSEs and finished a master's degree last year. There's so many different ways to learn now, which is crazy. And I was just thinking, if I probably would have been way more interested in school, because the methods you can learn and absorb information that just weren't available when I was young.
It's so important, though, for kids to find that thing that they're good at, whatever it is, because it balances out the struggles, knowing that you're good at something.
Oh, definitely. It just gives you, again, confidence and belief that you are as good as everyone else in certain aspects. But if you don't find that, it's also equally important, I think, to understand and for teachers, whatever form that may be, to understand how someone learns. And said the way I learned was perfect for the career I had. It was audio and it was visual and it was obviously doing, where that isn't always the case at school. It was a different methods, and it was like I'm not absorbing the information that way. So, and there was no other way. There wasn't an audio version. You couldn't. It was cheating. whether you was listening to stuff. So again, as I got older and realised that isn't the case, it's just the way I absorb the information.
Yeah, just have the information how you need it and how you learn makes complete sense,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
Yeah.
So what do you think your 7-year-old self would think about where you are now?
7. He'd be surprised because he wasn't into football really at 7. I'd got run over at 5, so just recovering from that and getting back into a regular routine at school. But 7.
Or whenever you realised that you
realised-
were dyslexic, what do you think that little boy would think of you now?
He'd be proud of the degree. Like, that's the proudest my mum's been of all the stuff I've done. When I said I was just taking or going to study for a master's degree, she was like proud. And then when I passed and she came to graduation, and it was like, that's the picture that's up in the house. Like, forget the medals and everything else. Like, that's the picture. That's the one thing that she's proud of.
Oh, that's lovely. So tell us about the degree. I mean, congratulations for getting it, but
you.
what are you hoping to achieve from it?
Yeah, it's degree in sporting directorship. So it's more of a leadership role, and hopefully it's not necessarily needed now, but a similar style to coaching badges when the previous generation of manager didn't need a license to coach. You could just go into coaching, and the roles I want to do, you can just go into, but I'm thinking in years to come, there's going to be licenses needed and degrees and qualifications. So I'm trying to tick them boxes now because I'm not ready to focus on one specific thing yet. But when I'm ready, I don't want there to be any excuses of, oh, you need to do this and you need to have that. And hopefully I've got all the qualifications that everyone else has got. And then I have a 20-year playing career, which a 50-year-old, more experienced businessman won't be able to go back and have. So I'm just trying to make sure there's less excuses for them not to give me the job.
Yeah, strategic thinking.
Yeah.
So what are your dreams? What do you want to do? What is your sort of big, scary future dream?
I don't know yet. Again, I'm just enjoying doing a lot of different things. I came out of playing and I was aware that I wasn't going to be able to dedicate my focus on one thing because I wasn't going to enjoy it as much as playing, and it wouldn't have the best impact on me if I tried to do that. So keeping busy for 2 or 3 days doing one thing and then another thing, and that was the best way I was able to focus and give everything I was doing maximum effort, because it wasn't solely that. I wasn't getting tired of doing it because I was only going to do it for a short period of time. But now my children are of age where I'm just enjoying being around them. They're all at different stages of their childhood, and my oldest is near enough an adult now. So
how old are your kids?
I've got a 20-year-old, a 16-year-old and a 11-year-old.
And are any of them dyslexic?
Potentially my middle son. And it's not because of the schooling element. I'm gauging that on the way he thinks about football. We think about it very similar. He's always been able to have a certain level of conversation from when he was 10, 11 and watch the game. Like, I could be watching a game and see something and he's saying it to me and I'm thinking, you shouldn't watch the game like that at 10 or 11. You should just watch the game and say, oh, what a goal. But he was like, Dad, why did he do this? Why did he do that? I'm like, oh, you obviously think about it a little bit different than the average fan or just spectator. So I'd probably say him, but they're all brighter than me when I was at school, definitely. My oldest he's quite bright, to be fair. He's very bright. I had to stop doing his homework or help him with his homework. I think he was probably 10 years old, so it's been a while ago. My daughter, again, she has traits of the way I think. So maths, I would always do our maths homework with her because we would process it the same. So as soon as I could figure out a way to explain it to her, she would run with it. So the maths would always be me and the English side of it would always be Mum.
I've read that your goal is to be director of sport.
Hopefully.
Is that something you see in the near future, or?
I don't, to be honest. I would have to be, even if I was started today, it would take a number of years to get to that role. And I haven't started that journey in terms of being focused on our role. Again, there's opportunities there, and I'm thankful for the people that I've worked with to give me them opportunities, but like I said, I'm not ready mentally to just say, yeah, this is the direction I'm going in solely, because it's going to be that. It's going to be longer hours, and you kind of have to be more dedicated to that than everything else in order to be successful. I think that's in any walk of life. So I'm just happy that there are options there, and people that I want to work with recognise that I can add value.
It's about putting that thought out there, isn't it, of something that you're looking to do in the future. We talk a lot about it in the interviews that we do with dyslexics, how it's about having that vision of where you want to be, and it might be a bit further down the line, but it's just knowing that's sort of a goal and putting it out there, and then somehow life takes you there.
Oh, definitely. And I think most things, the hardest part is just to start. And then once you've started, I kind of become obsessive and be like, I'm on it now. So, and I know I can potentially stay focused if that was the plan, but I know what it's going to take away from access in terms of my kids still play football and sport. So it'll be me missing them again. And it was okay in my head. It was okay to miss them when I was playing. I'd feel probably a little bit more guilty missing them now. So I can wait. It's their time, and I can start that career if it ever comes at a later date.
So do all your kids play football?
They all play different capacities. I'll start with the youngest. She very recreational, but she's definitely the most athletic, and I think she's just realised how athletic she may be. The school nominated her for the 200 metres in the regionals where we live, and she did it, and she won now, so she's going to the nationals, and she'd never done it before. So, but she's always been able to run and enjoys running, which comes strange to me. I don't know how you enjoy running, especially the way she does. In regards to my middle one, I would say he's the most dedicated to it. Obviously reads the game differently to them two, but yeah, loves it. Absolutely loves it. Still wears football tops 16, but wears football tops all the time. And then the old one who's just stepped away from the game. He has more talent than I ever had. He just didn't love the game and what it takes to become a professional, because like most things, your talent will get you the opportunity, and then the level of professionalism determines how long you stay there or if you even want to be there. And fair play to him, he realised pretty quick that it wasn't going to be for him in terms of the professionalism side of it. It was kind of like, no, there's something I think I'll be better at, and yeah, he's took down a different avenue, which I'm pleased because he's happy.
That's the most important thing in life, isn't it? Happiness.
Yep.
So if you had one piece of advice to give to other dyslexics, young and old, what would that be? Young
first. Just experiment different things. Again, finding your passion. You'll definitely be at an advantage in some area. Tends to be practical, I felt. So definitely do a variety of things to find, one, what you're good at, and also what you enjoy. But for an older dyslexic, I would say try not to be embarrassed. And also that applies to the younger ones. Try not to be embarrassed, because I think that was a hindrance to me. I think because it wasn't a common thing. Again, it was deemed as slow or not as intelligent as everyone else. So tend to be a lot more embarrassed by reading out loud. I remember some of the tricks I used to get up to. It was like, I knew when we was going to have to read, I would be able to figure out how many sentences it was going to get to me. So I would look at the sentences I was going to be reading, and I could ask the people next to me of the words that I wasn't able to say or read. So I'll be like, this is going to be the section. Okay. And I would say, oh, what does that say? Just pretend I'm not really focused, and they would give it to me, and then my memory would allow me to, when it come to me, memorize the words. I wasn't reading, I was just memorizing what they had said. So again, that was probably a thing I would say. Try not to be as embarrassed.
Yeah, it's about owning your dyslexia, really, isn't it, and finding your passion. Amazing. Thank you so much. It's been really, really fascinating chatting to you, and I'm sure it'll be inspirational for so many. It was brilliant. Thanks.
Thank you.
This podcast is sponsored by Microsoft, who, like us, are passionate about empowering dyslexic thinking. Check out their brilliant immersive reader, free across several Microsoft 365 apps, which helps dyslexic thinkers to fly. by clicking the Microsoft link in the podcast notes. And if you'd like to find out more about what dyslexic thinking skills are and how to recognise them in schools, at work or at home, you can take our free training now. Empowering Dyslexic Thinking in Schools, available on Microsoft Learn, and Empowering Dyslexic Thinking at Work, available on LinkedIn Learning. And please subscribe so you don't miss out on future lessons in dyslexic thinking.